was just 140 characters. The idea of even having an impact 140 characters was still alien to me, even though I was live tweeting this launch, it's going through the motions. But anyway, as time went on, we were watching Brian. I'd generated this buzz around this bat. Suddenly, people were tuning in to the shuttle launch. It was a unique shuttle launch because Brian was hitching a ride, and he wasn't going to move. So we were kind of all saying, when's he going to go? When's he going to go? Because usually, in the past, they've had bats that have flown away. The vibrations get too much. It's not usually a problem. People were saying, NASA needs to stop the launch to pull the bat off. And it was like, I kind of agreed. It was like, yeah, they need to stop the launch, because if this guy holds on, it's going to be trouble for the bat. But the NASA commentator on NASA TV was saying, no, it's fine. They fly away. It's okay. Did he fly away? No. He decided to stay attached to the shuttle, and infrared analysis and everything after the launch proved that he was still on it at launch. And this was devastating to this little band of followers, just because I called him Brian. We'd personalized this bat, and everybody, and even NASA, had to respond. They basically did the analysis. They said that bat's toast, and it was sad. It was very, very sad. And I'm not making light of this, because at the time it was horrible. I had poems sent to me about Brian the Bat. I had outpouring of grief, and there was a lot of people involved in space and with NASA, having to respond to all these Twitter messages asking how Brian is. Well, he's not good. He's there. You can see him. And a lot of people thought he made it into space. This guy made it into space. That's nice to think, but he didn't. He's now a few bits of carbon, but that was really the impact that I had. Now, you may not understand most of this, but little did I know at the time. I had a small community based on space on Twitter, and I didn't realize the impact it would have by personalizing this bat. A guy named Geir Barstein, and I've met him. He's a fantastic guy, a Norwegian guy. I've got an affinity for Norwegians because I lived with them for 5 months, and I really love the fact he was following my Twitter feed. And it turns out he's a journalist for one of the biggest newspapers in Norway. And if you take anything away from this talk, you know what bat is in Norwegian. It's flaggermus. So remember that. I think that's a cool name. But basically, the title was, the headline news, this actually appeared on the front page of Dagbladet. I don't know how you pronounce that, but it's the second biggest newspaper in Norway. Bat stowaway on space shuttle. Brian settled on the fuel tank. And I translated it. I had a good read of it, and it was a really heartwarming tale filled with loads of grief. It basically said, attributed the naming of Brian to me. So I'd generated this buzz around a shuttle launch that otherwise was quite unremarkable. It was just another shuttle launch, but Brian was attached to it, so therefore it made the front page news. I mean, go figure. But anyway, little did I know, this was the day after. This was March 16th. I had actually gone down to San Diego, and I started receiving loads of emails from my friends saying, Ian, do you know what you've done? It's like, what do you mean? It's hit the press. And I said, yeah, I know, it's in the Norwegian press. Who cares? It's great. Don't get me wrong, but, still, it's not massive. The UK got hold of it. One of the UK's biggest newspapers, the Daily Mail, got hold of news that Brian the Bat had stowed away on the space shuttle. They basically, I'm assuming at this point they probably got their information from the Norwegian press, but I'd like to think that this guy, somebody from the Foreign Service, was following my Twitter feed, and they're obviously very interested in this bat that had perished. So this was the following day. And then the biggest newspaper, probably one of the worst newspapers of all time, but still one of the biggest newspapers in the UK, grabbed hold of it, The Sun newspaper. And this actually hit the hard copy. This actually hit the front page of the print. And I got messages galore saying, Ian, what was that about Brian the Bat? Because he's on the front page of our newspaper. And basically it goes something like, Brian, a free-tailed bat, given his name by worried fans chatting on the social networking site Twitter, decided to dig in and hold tight for the journey. It was totally inaccurate, because he obviously didn't hold on that much, but that was my moment. I was sitting in this internet cafe in San Diego, and I was holding my head. I couldn't believe that one tweet, naming a bat attached to a shuttle, could have that impact. I impacted mainstream press through a Twitter feed. Just one tweet did this. And that was my moment that I was converted, because I suddenly realized Twitter is powerful. And it was absolutely astounding to me that I could actually popularize this shuttle launch in such a way. Now he's immortalized, because it is sad. I mean, I'm not making light of this bat's misfortune, but right at the time, I thought, well, you know, I need to build on this, because suddenly I realized, you know, a lot of animals are involved in spaceflight. So the Brian Batt Foundation started on my personal site, astroengine.com. Remember, I wasn't working for Discovery News at this point. I was just a blogger, just blogging about anything online, and I was very independent, and I just decided to start this Brian Batt Foundation just for the hell of it, but it's to remember the voluntary and accidental endeavors of animals in human spaceflight. So I devoted a series of articles about animals in space, and Brian the Bat was the guy that started it. All right, other wow moments. I mean, there's been so many cool times with Twitter that I can't even begin to list them, but there were a few real good moments for me, especially after the experience of the Discovery launch, because that really just showed me what kind of power this Twitter account can have. So this is when I started working for Discovery News. I'd made a habit then of live tweeting events. And of course, the big event was the Alcross impact in October on the moon. And there was so much interest on Twitter anyway. People were live tweeting it because, you know, there was going to be massive fireworks when this thing hits the surface of the moon. I think it's supposed to hit like 4 in the morning for me in LA. And so I was up, you know, trying to tweet away, trying to keep up with the news, trying to find any articles possible, writing blog posts on it, just giving a really good coverage online coverage of this impact. And there was also a lot of pseudoscience going on. The Huffington Post published an article saying, you know, will Alcross injure the moon? Will it hurt the moon? So we had a lot of these people firing messages at the science media asking, is it really going to hurt the moon? Is it going to knock the moon out of orbit? You know, is this a nuclear weapon? And so I found it very, very useful on Twitter to give live responses to those people saying, no, it's just like, you know, crashing a truck into the moon. Don't worry, you know, it's nothing bad's going to happen. But what happened at this point, the day after, suddenly I noticed my follower account explode. I had so many emails in my inbox, I got flooded. Basically what happened, CNN, I'd obviously been following my Twitter feed to keep up with the events, and they actually featured me the following day, along with the NASA Alcross official account, and I think bad astronomer Phil Plait. And I was like, whoa, I'm not in that league, am I? That's just crazy. But I suddenly had this influx of like 1,000 new followers. I had so much traffic coming to my website, it was untrue. So if you get featured by people like CNN, suddenly your whole world opens up. You may have heard about Meteor Watch and Moon Watch. It's actually run by a guy, Adrian West, out of a shed in the middle of the UK, and he's in a very modest astronomical group, and I think there was only like 20 members in this Newbury Astronomical Society. And they run it from a shed. He's got like computers set up in a shed, and he's got a telescope. And basically he came up with this idea, you'll use social media to promote astronomy. And he actually created a worldwide observatory, especially around the time of the last few meteor showers. He's done a series called Meteor Watch, and basically it's just using Twitter, purely through Twitter. You add the hashtag Meteor Watch or Moon Watch, depending on what event's coming up, and there's actually a Meteor Watch happening now because the Perseids are falling. So if you're outside, you're looking for a shooting star, just add the hashtag Meteor Watch. And also he's got like this online interactive map that if you tweet that hashtag with your zip code and country, or how many shooting stars you've seen, you get plotted on this map, and you can see the intensity. You can see these clusters building up of people watching this meteor event. And the best thing is, I mean, I became like the California hub for Meteor Watch back in November, I think it was, and it was huge. I mean, I was getting questions about what is a meteor? Is it a meteorite? Is it an asteroid? You know, can they kill us? Is it dust? Is it, you know, we were getting so many questions, and you just put the hashtag on there and you join this global conversation. And literally, if you just get involved in Twitter, and if you get involved in the same conversation that everybody else is, and that's what all these hashtags are, they're just a way of categorizing all the same tweets in one feed. So you can follow what's going on, and you get questions fired backwards and forwards. It's very, very, a very progressive way of communicating. And Adrian's Meteor Watch, how it started, and then Moonwatch later, phenomenal success. And as I say, it's happening now, so keep an eye out. I've met renowned scientists, and it was a funny story. I met Mike Brown on Twitter. Mike Brown is the guy who discovered Eris and consequently got Pluto demoted. He likes to take credit for that, but you know, I blame the IAU for that. But he's on Twitter, and his handle on Twitter is Pluto Killer. So he's obviously got this. He's very charismatic. He's very entertaining, and he pisses people off. People are really, really annoyed that he was responsible for the demotion of Pluto, and he loves it. And he's got a book out. It's coming out now. It's called. I Killed Pluto and It Had It Coming or something, and it's going to be a great book because, you know, that's a controversial subject, and I think he's really using social media to his benefit to promote his book and his thoughts on Pluto. And what happened was, just before Christmas last year, I've been in kind of relaxed contact with him on Twitter. He'd often go out on these campaigns, and I'd interview him via Twitter. I mean, that's the first time I've ever done an interview via Twitter. And we'd spoken on the phone before. Really great guy. He lives in Pasadena, literally only 40 minutes up the road from me. And he just sent me this random tweet, and he said, "Ian, do you want to come for Christmas dinner?" And I was like, "Well, okay, yeah, I can do that." He said, because Govert Schilling's going to be down. He's the author of one of the Pluto books, I forget what it's called, The Search for Planet X. A very, very good book. It's not Planet X, Doomsday Planet X, by the way, it's Pluto. And so he was just having to travel through, and he said, "Ian, come over because I'm going to get the blogger from, I'm going to get Emily from the Planetary Society blog to come over because she's based in Santa Monica." So we all just, sorry? Yeah, I can never pronounce the name. Yeah. So suddenly, using just Twitter, just through familiarity on Twitter, we'd managed to assemble 4 people who would have never usually met. I mean, I wouldn't have known that Mike lived in Pasadena. I wouldn't have known that Emily was literally just 10 minutes down the road. I wouldn't know that Govert Schilling was just happening to do a US tour. And so we all came together. We all had a common interest, a common passion, but we were all completely different. And our wives and girlfriends were there as well. And it was just a wonderful event. And because I was based in the US over Christmas, I was feeling very homesick as well. It was just wonderful to bring everybody together, and that's what Twitter did. I met renowned scientists for dinner. I mean, that was a big moment for me. I've also co-authored a book. I mean, I say book, it's still in the process of being edited, but I met this guy through Digg.com, actually. It's another social networking site, well, social bookmarking site, and he just happened to like my articles, and he said, he actually comes from Ohio, Greg Fish. He's a business analyst come computer scientist. And he approached me about an article I wrote on asteroid mining. And he said, you know, is it really a viable business? And I said, I don't know about the business, but it's really cool. You know, we're going to be doing it next year. So he came in, and we kind of analyzed the whole thing about asteroid mining. And it should be a good book once it's done. I mean, that's only one chapter of it. It's actually the commercialization of spaceflight. It's called Astroeconomics, How to Make Money from the Vacuum of Space. So if anybody's got anybody wants to help out with the editing, that'd be fantastic. But hopefully in time we'll get it published. But I met him just randomly on social media, and he just randomly contacted me. I've never been to Ohio before. He's from Columbus. He just happens to be in the same interest that I've got, and suddenly we're writing a book, and we got it done in 3 months, just before. Well, the problem was, then I started working for Discovery News. Then my whole world changed. So I haven't been able to, we haven't actually managed to finish the thing, but we will. In a roundabout way, I actually got my job. I met Dave Mosher via Twitter, and Dave Mosher was the Discovery Space producer before me, and he liked my articles, I liked his articles. We bantered a bit, we formed a relationship on Twitter.